Sounds very dramatic. But I'm going to show you some stuff, and I think in the end you can answer the question for yourselves and decide, are we sitting on the time bomb? Thank you. Now, short introduction. Childhood obesity, it's a buzzword all over the world. We visit a lot of conferences throughout the year, me and my two colleagues, and we go to many countries in the world, and everywhere in the world at the moment where we attend conferences, people are talking about child obesity. They are very worried about child obesity, and you see this in the newspapers and in magazines all over the world. This is just a few I took out. Medical law. And it's not only in South Africa. I was in the US last year. I mean, it's all over their papers and their magazines. They are very worried about childhood obesity, about kids getting lazy, kids getting fatter, and they are asking a lot of questions. In the academic world, there's been books written on this topic. You can see here all kinds of titles. I love this one here, Conquering Childhood Obesity for Dummies. So this is a hot topic at the moment in the world. And I was in India earlier this year. They are very worried in India about their children. Very worried. So statistics, I'm not going to bore you with too many statistics, but I mean, you read this all over the papers every day. Childhood obesity is ballooning. We know that. Stats make a shocking read. In the past 30 years, the incidence of obesity in the US has tripled. Tripled. In other words, 3 times more than 30 years ago. South Africa is not far behind. Look at the statistics over here. This is the US, the purple line over here. And you can see childhood obesity is on the rise rapidly. But also look at the other graphs here. Australia, Germany, Iceland, Japan, Chile, Scotland. So yes, statistics shows us that childhood obesity is on the rise. For me, this is one of the most shocking statistics at the moment. The WHO, which is for the World Health Organization, and they are the people who keep the statistics up to date, 17.6 million children overweight under the age of 5. And it's so important to realize that this is sometimes, I'm very shocked about this because there's a myth going around that people say, don't worry about a fat child, that's only baby fat. That's rubbish. You only have baby fat when you're a very small baby. And as soon as a child starts crawling or walking around, he's not supposed to have baby fat. And I can promise you, a child looking like this at the age of 5 or 6, this is not baby fat. This is a problem. And you can see the statistics over here. This is improving every day. There's some more statistics. The reason why I show you USA statistics, they are the most advanced with regard to these statistics. I've got very interesting stuff the other day from India, for friends from over there. The same thing in England. There's an RCU that's visiting us just now. The same thing in Scotland. They're now doing research. So I can go on and on and on. All over the world, you can see that there's an increase, and also in all ages, from 2 to 19, there's an increase in child obesity. In South Africa, the best statistics we have was a study done in 2006 by Neil Armstrong. At the moment, there are new statistics now coming forward. They haven't been published yet, but I'm looking forward to that. 2011 statistics. But in South Africa, the same picture we have here, that there is a huge increase in childhood obesity and overweight. What I just said, remember, a child does not grow out of an obesity. You know, a medical doctor said to friends of ours once, the child was about 6 or 7 years old, he says, don't worry, it's baby fat, she will grow out of it. There's no way that a child can grow out of an obesity. You must do something. That is where we, in our school, we have a subject called kindergenetics. It's been wonderful work in this field. This is the people who can give a child like this professional help on the path to the goal. What is the definition of obesity? Shortly, World Health Organization defines obesity as a disease in which excess body fat has accumulated to such an extent that the health may be affected. And a very, very important point is this one. Obesity is a complex disease with both genetic and environmental components. We must remember this. It's a very complex disease. Don't just tell somebody, listen, you're fat now, get over it. It's not that easy. What is the reason? What is the reason? People ask, but why is our children getting fat? Why is our children getting more overweight? Many reasons. It's not just only one reason. Things like a sedentary lifestyle, meaning little or no exercise. Children do not exercise and play as much as they did in the past. We see that through a lot of research that has been done. In South Africa, and not only South Africa, I was in Zimbabwe about two and a half weeks ago in Bulawayo. They have the same problem there with regard to urbanization. We are busy at the Potchefstroom University or Northwest University, the Potchefstroom campus now with a big study, we call it a peer study, on the whole problem of urbanization. What is happening to people when they come from the rural areas and start living in the urban areas? Because there are big social and cultural disruption, and because of that, people do not exercise as much as they do. Children, they go to they were used to living in a rural area where they were playing around the whole day, and now all of a sudden they are living in an urban area, in an informal setting where it's not very safe. So they are locked up in houses basically for the whole day. So they cannot go around, play anymore, etc., etc., etc. Things like unhealthy diets. I mean, there's a lot that have been said about this. Children not eating as healthy as they should. In South Africa, safety, big problem. I take my own children, Potchefstroom, we were talking yesterday, 15, 20 years ago, my daughter could take a bicycle and go down to school. I cannot do that anymore. I cannot expect with my grade 8 or grade 9 daughter to take a bicycle and to go down to the school to play sports. It's not that safe anymore. We did a research study, Professor Madikane, which is the head of chemokinetics at my university, and where they asked the children who lived in informal settings, close to Potchefstroom, cafe, why don't the children play in the afternoon? And the answer was, it's too unsafe. What the children does is, when they come from school, they will go to their little informal house and they will lock themselves inside. Because it's unsafe to play in the streets, etc. So it does have an influence. Broken homes, working parents. You can just think for yourself, you're a single mother. That child doesn't have the opportunity that other children may have. And then, obviously, everybody's talking. We call them the internet generation. And it's not only TV, it's the screen generation. And you guys know these days, you're sitting one of them, the iPads and the iPods and the Xboxes, and you name them all. By the way, I'm a mean Xbox player. My boy told me about an Xbox, so I play a mean game of golf and a good game of basketball. But yes, we are the screen generation. I mean, you're in front of your laptop or your iPad basically 24/7 because your job asks it of you. And the newer generation coming through now will just be more and more involved in screens. It's interesting, my brother-in-law is an engineer. Good engineer. And he says, Hans, we hardly ever used the computers when I was studying for an engineer. Now his son, my nephew, is also an engineer. He says, I cannot work without my iPad and my laptop. That's what we do all day, is we just use the laptops and iPads to give us the answers. That's how things have changed over the years. Very interesting. The study they did in the US, 45% children watch 2 or more hours of screen time per day. 2 or more hours per day. In South Africa, a study done by the more than 4 hours per day. Again, some of these children were locked up in their homes because of the safety reason. And what could they do? They could watch TV. The activity they could get involved. Consequences. Oh my goodness. A lot of consequences. Child obesity, this hair-raising stuff. I don't have hair, but I promise you, Winton's hair will stand upright when you read this stuff. Childhood obesity is a serious medical problem. You must know that. High emotional costs, social grounds. You know. We were at school. What happens to the fat child? Nee, jy speel nie saam nie, gaan sit daar agter die toilet en jy vang net die bal altyd mis en jy maak net moeilikheid. Jy eet jou broodjies. People are rude to them. People call them names. I was watching a TV program the other night where they talked to a child who wanted to commit suicide because of this whole social problem she had with regard to obesity. Lead to depression, aggression, self-pity, even suicide. Furthermore, obese children, this is what we are interested in our subjects, in phylokinetics, biokinetics, etc. Developmental deficiencies, huge problem. Again, this is where your phylokineticists can come in and give these children professional help. Learning problems, health problems, social problems. And this is a very important one here. Childhood obesity is a threat to public health. I don't know sometimes if the government realizes this. What is the threat to public health? Negative health consequences during childhood and adulthood. There's a wonderful photo of this, right? Isn't this typical of a fat child? You're always sitting on a time bomb. What do you guys think? I think so. I think so. Now the question is, what are we going to do about this? This is where we come in. This is the background to sports science, to biokinetics, to phylokinetics. This is our job. Our job is physical activity. We like people to move. We like people to move for many reasons. For health purposes, for sports purposes, you name it. So what is the role of physical activity in this whole saga? Physical activity is very important. And the more, it's very important from a very young age. You can treat overweight and obesity with physical activity as your cornerstone. If you can teach a child from a very young age to eat healthy, and I'm not saying a diet, just eat healthy. Just teaching basic stuff. It's the same with physical activity. Just teaching basic stuff. Teaching to play, teaching to run around, teaching to enjoy physical activity. I'm not talking sports here, I'm just talking physical activity.